Have you heard of Kaltblut Magazine? It's a magazine for art, fashion, and media based out of Berlin, Germany. Every issue works as a platform for artists to showcase their point of view. Recently, me and a few of my friends were the artists that were showcased. My name is Ari Riddick, and I was the fashion designer and creative director behind these images. So the way that this photo series came about was that my best friend Stef Murza, who is a very talented photographer and model, which I work with her very, very often, she approached me and told me that her friend Sarah Tweedy, who is an also very talented makeup artist, they had been wanting to work together for a while, and they both wanted to submit their work to magazines. Also, Sarah had just learned how to do prosthetics, so she really wanted a fun project to experiment with that a little bit more. Once they had found a photographer named Kylie Scheib, they came to me to do the styling. We'll be honest, we were trying to submit to a different magazine originally, and so we did have to follow the guidelines for that submission. I am not going to talk about what magazine we were trying to submit to because they didn't accept it. So we're only going to talk about Kaltblut. So the guidelines that we knew of, we knew that we needed 4 different looks. They were supposed to be our interpretation of womanhood. So we kind of had to follow those creative paths. One restriction that we made for ourselves was we wanted just one shooting location so that we could get it all done in one day. And so with that, we started to brainstorm. So Steph and I started talking about the idea of a 1960s housewife and what her dreams would have looked like. So because of that, we thought it would be good for the first photo to be of a 1960s, 1950s housewife, passed out, splayed across a dining table, but the dining table and living room furniture and everything would be set up on a beach to make it just a little bit more surreal. And she would basically be passed out on the table with a bottle of wine and a bottle of Quaaludes knocked over. The idea for that one was that I was just going to style Steph in some vintage clothes. That ended up not working out, though. We ended up not being able to do that because very last minute, we did find out that all of the looks had to be designed by the same designer. So essentially, I had to hand make all of the clothes. We still held on to that initial idea, though, for the rest of the concepts. Because of that, we had 3 separate dream scenarios. We had the sci-fi alien girl, which with that, we did do 2 separate looks. We had the Birth of Venus washed ashore mermaid look, and we had the doll. First, I want to talk about the research that I did for each of these looks. For the alien girl looks, I researched a bunch of different old book covers. That was really what I was drawing the most inspiration from, especially the old book cover for Kurt Vonnegut's Sirens of Titan, which, side note, if you've ever read it, it's a fantastic book. Highly recommend. But ultimately, this image right here is the one that really inspired the look, and you could even see we tried to recreate it as best as we could. One of the things that really inspired me from this cover was definitely the plunging neckline, the sexy plunging neckline. Can you tell that I never actually sit in these chairs? I keep hitting my head against these pictures back here. We knew we wanted it to be pretty sexy. We knew that we wanted a buff, hot alien boyfriend with her. We did originally throw the idea around of building a robot, but it was just easier to find a male model and paint his skin green. So yeah, this image right here just feels like it really set the tone for what we were trying to create with those two images. Which this is the cover for Swan Song by Brian Stableford. As I said, we had to pivot from the original housewife concept for one of the images in order for me to be able to make the item. Because we had to pivot last minute and throw the dollhouse in there, I don't have any visual research to share with you. We did kind of just throw that together with the original concept of the housewife in mind still. The only real research I can show you would just be images of surreal art on the beach. Obviously, later on, we have a mermaid one, so the beach works for that. But beaches are honestly pretty prevalent in surrealist art. So when thinking about, oh, how can I make this dollhouse feel like it's in a dream, having it set on the beach does just make it feel a little bit more dreamlike. Now, for the Birth of Venus, I definitely did quite a bit of visual research. And I was looking at all of these stills from like 1930s, 1940s movies, and thinking about the idea of a 50s and 60s housewife, she would be a little girl during that time. And so, yeah, that would probably be embedded in her dreams of like these big, glamorous women and the way that they're portrayed in those movies. So I saw this one with this big seahorse, and I was just like thinking about Botticelli's Birth of Venus, and I was like, oh, Stef, you need a giant shell behind you. Which I said that fully knowing that I would be the one to have to make that shell. I was also looking at these images with these like dripping pearls and everything, and so I knew that I wanted some sort of like big headpiece on her, and I knew that we wanted to let Sarah have fun with the prosthetics on this one. This is the only sketch that I have from the entire photo series. I didn't really sketch out much for this one. Yeah. Okay, so now we can go ahead and talk about the construction and the materials. For the two alien looks, I used the worst polyester stretch fabric ever. I hate that fabric so much. I say that because I hate the feeling of it. I hate the like plasticky metallic feeling of that fabric. I got those from a shop called Spandex House in the Garment District here in New York City. I did originally buy those to do a costume for Halloween of Hilary Duff in the Lizzie McGuire movie for Lizzie and Isabella, but yeah, I just never got around to doing that, so I just had the fabric. The purple one I actually already had because I had worn it to my second ever book club meeting, which that meeting was Robot Uprising themed. So this was kind of a recycling of a look. I did make the green one from a vintage pattern of like a jumpsuit, but I altered it a little bit. The little ray guns that she had, I just made those out of water guns. I just spray painted them to make them look more sci-fi-y. And then, yeah, for her little alien boyfriend, we just painted his skin green and threw him in some black pants, which that model's name is Ibrahim. He was a major sweetheart and so kind for letting me paint his entire upper body green. The fabric that I used for the dollhouse one was a silk taffeta. I literally had just enough of it left from a project that I did a couple years ago. I liked the silk taffeta because if you've ever used taffeta, you know it's kind of like stiffer, and I thought that worked well because it kind of gives the look of like stiff paper, like a paper doll dress. And then we just threw some like lace and like some tulle and stuff right there because, like I said, I rushed it and the collar kind of looked like shit. I'm not gonna lie. I'm willing to admit when I do bad work, but I was in a rush, so it worked for the photos. which is all that mattered. Now, I ended up not making a top for the mermaid look because Sarah said that she wanted to do like prosthetic clams over her breasts. For the skirt, I used this textured satin fabric that I've honestly had for years. I thrifted it in like high school and I've just never done anything with it. Same thing with the pearls. I bought them at Michael's in like college and it was like a big bundle of them that was on sale and I've just never used them. So I was actually very happy to finally use some old materials that I've just been holding on to for a long time. For the headpiece, I used the same pearls and I used some leftover organza fabric that I had from a past project. I just hot glued it onto like a rubber swimming cap, which honestly, one of these days, I'm going to make an ASMR video of my outfits because the sound of those beads is just impeccable. Now I want to talk about the construction of the shell. That shell was my worst enemy. I just want to say that right here, right now. It took me an entire month to build it. I built it out of trash, chicken wire, and paper mache. It took so long because I had to build it outside in my backyard. And anytime there was bad weather, it would damage it to a point where I would have to spend the next day just repairing it. And I would try to cover it with a tarp, but then the tarp would break and it took a month. It took a month. At the end, it was over 5 foot tall. It was well past my wingspan. Oh, it was massive. We had to rent a U-Haul to get to the beach. While at the beach, after we got our photos with it, and when we had moved on to the other looks, some children were playing with the shell, and it fell in the ocean, and the damage that caused was irreparable. We got it back to my house, and it slowly just started to like crumble for like a month and a half. And it kind of became like a physical manifestation of like my depression at the time. And so I didn't do anything about it. It just sat in my backyard until my uncle, who I live with, I live in his basement. He eventually texted me and said, "So are you going to do something with that thing in the backyard?" So I destroyed it. I ripped it apart and I threw it away. All that hard work just to rip it apart. It was very cathartic though. Like it felt very good to like break that shit up. Not gonna lie. So on the actual shoot day, we were very rushed. We really had to get in a lot in just one day. It was incredibly stressful. But luckily, we got it all done. We had an amazing set assistant, Cassie, Castaneda. She's amazing and such a sweetheart. Sarah killed it with the makeup. It came out so well. Was very fucking happy with it. We did the mermaid look first because the prosthetics would take a while to put on and everything like that. So she did that before we even got to the beach. And then she kept the prosthetics on for the alien because the gills kind of worked with the idea and the concept and everything. This is a detail that doesn't really matter, but it was just an interesting tidbit from the day. The modeling agency accidentally sent us 2 different models. We had only requested 1 male model, but they sent us 2 guys. So we unfortunately had to send one of them home. We felt really bad and awkward about it. The day that we shot everything was July 27th. After that, it took a while to get into an actual magazine. It took us a while to edit the photos. Like I said, we originally did all of this for a different magazine. It took them a while to reject us, but they did eventually. After that, Stef started submitting us to a couple of different magazines until finally Kaltblut accepted us. And so on November 30th, they published all of them alongside a write-up about the series. The write-up goes more in depth on like the deeper meaning behind the series and like how it pertains to society and like our lives as women and things like that. Which, if you're interested in that, you can go read the article on Kaltblut Magazine's website. But I wanted to talk to you about the behind the scenes and how it actually came to be. And so yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you think of this photo series. Which one is your favorite? Which would be your dream scenario? And yeah, just let me know what you think down below. I will also be linking all of the artists that I collaborated with on this project in the description below. Thank you guys. Mwah.